صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
عليكم السلام.
As far as we Shias are concerned amongst the Muslims, I think we are extremely fortunate to have a lot of literature in our Sharia. There are three main books that we are all aware of and we all follow. The first one obviously is the Holy Quran. Now that is not only for the Shias, it is for all the Muslims. And that is the book that has come directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second important book that we have got is Nahjul Balagha from Imam Ali alayhi salam, which is full of his sermons and sayings, which are very powerful indeed. And thirdly, we have got the book of du'as and prayers by Imam Ali Zainul Abidin alayhi salam, which, as we all know, is Sa'ifa Sajjadiyah. Now, I was referring to some of my old notes, and I came across one of the lectures that I delivered in the mosque across the road, and the date in my notes was February 2013. So that was exactly 10 years ago. And I had picked the dua from Sa'ifa Sajjadiyah. So it's a coincidence that I have got the opportunity here, alhamdulillah, today to once again pick something from Sa'ifa Sajjadiyah. Now, just a brief introduction about Sa'ifa Sajjadiyah, which most of you are still aware of. First of all, I don't think there is any Muslim in the world who is not in need of du'as. Every Muslim has at some stage or another made a du'a to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we are all in a need at some time or another, whatever it is, whether it's a health issue, whether it is financial, whether it's economic, whether it is social, whatever. Now, Sa'ifa Sajjadiyah is not only a book of du'as or supplications. It has got deep spirituality within those du'as. And the author, Imam Ali Zainul Abidin alayhi salam, he is known and recognized as one of the greatest spiritual personalities of Islam. Now, there are a lot of interesting things about the background of Sa'ifa Sajjadiyah, or in terms of how well known Sa'ifa Sajjadiyah is. But I'll pick one item today, and inshallah maybe in the future I'll pick another one. There was a German professor called Anne-Marie Schimmel. She was an author and a researcher in Islamic studies. She translated and published Sa'ifa Sajjadiyah in German language. Now once she was sitting in the hospital next to the bedside of her mother, who was very ill at the time. And while she was sitting, she would spend quite a lot of time next to her mother. And while she was sitting there, she was still doing the translation of Sahifai Sajjadiya. And next to the mother's bed, there was another bed where there was another lady who was also a patient. And that lady was watching Professor Schimmel as to what she was doing. And that lady was a devout Catholic. So she didn't know anything, or maybe she knew very little about Islam. So after a while, when Professor Schimmel had taken a break, this lady who was sleeping next door, she asked Professor Schimmel, and she said, "Can I ask you a question?" So the professor said, "Yes, fine, no problem." And she said, "You know, I noticed that you are doing something in Islam, and I believe it is something to do with their supplications." So he said, she said, is there anything missing in Christianity and the Bible that you are having to turn to Islamic literature and Islamic supplications? So the professor kept quiet, and she didn't want to engage into a long discussion. So she said, "Yeah, I find it very interesting, and I will continue to do it." So the conversation then ended fairly abruptly. Now, later on, when Professor Schimmel had completed the translation of Sahifai Sajjadiya, or extracts from it, she published it in a book form. And she sent a copy of it to this lady who had asked her the question in the hospital. So when this lady received the book, she thought, okay, let me just have a look as to what is inside there. She started reading the book, and she was so impressed with the du'as and the supplications in their translation that she wrote back to Professor Schimmel, and she thanked her for sending the book. And she said, truly, the translation of this book, Sahifai Sajjadiya, is extremely important for many Western people, and I hope that they also read it, and I have decided to read it every day in my life. Salawat. Now there is another incident about a mufti from Egypt who had also been sent Sahifai Sajjadiya and what his comments were, but as I said, I will not pick that one today. So the dua that I'm going to pick extracts from, and I'm not going to frighten you, it is dua Mukkaram Ikhlaq, which I know is very long. So I'm not going to go through the whole dua, but I will touch on some extracts from that particular dua, especially in the earlier part of the dua. Now normally, and I'm speaking for myself, when I recite this dua, it is mainly on the 23rd night of Ramadan as part of the Amals. And I recite it at a great speed, following the reciter in the mosque when we are doing the Amals. And it is in Arabic, obviously. I don't know Arabic, so I don't understand what I'm reciting. I know nowadays, there is a translation that comes on the screen, but the recitation is so fast that you can't even pick the translation. So I don't understand what I'm reciting. But I know that Allah understands what I am telling him, what I'm reciting to him, what I'm asking him for. And because I am reciting the words of our Imam, Allah in His mercy will accept my words that I'm reciting to him, even though I don't understand what I'm saying, but he knows that I'm repeating what Imam had asked Allah for. And so Allah will give me the benefit of the dua. Now, in order to get more benefit of the dua, a lot of our scholars keep saying, and Sheikh Nuru has said this many times, that when we recite the duas, we should always try and make sure that we also read the translation of those duas. That we also read the whatever language we want the translation in is available. And once we recite, we look at the translation of duas like Dua Mukkaram Ikhlaq, it will make a huge impact on our lives. So inshallah, we will form that habit of also understanding the duas that we are reciting during the holy months and outside of those holy months. Now, as we all know, Dua Mukkaram Ikhlaq is one of the most important duas in Saifai Sajjadiyah. And what I'm going to discuss today, and these are the first parts of the dua, are the challenges that we face, or the problems that we face about the good deeds that we pray for. Now this might be a bit of a difficult concept to grasp, but when I go through each one individually, you'll understand what I'm talking about. So what I'm talking about is, what are the things, what are the challenges, what are the problems of our good deeds? So what are the things that wipe out our good deeds? We are trying very hard to do good deeds in our lives, which is highly recommended. But there are certain things which will erase our good deeds, which will wipe out our good deeds. So what are those events? And Imam Sajjad has been very careful in pointing those out in his du'as. And we have to be careful, therefore, that even when we do good deeds, that we do not fall into that trap of bala. Bala is problems. The bala that comes as a result of those good deeds. So something that we do, we should always be aware that there is some danger behind it as well if we don't follow the dua correctly. So Imam Sajjad is teaching us how to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to improve our character, but at the same time how to be aware of the problems that we could face. So let's look at some of the aspects. The first one is where Imam says, وَأَوْسِعْ عَلَيَّ فِي رِزْقِكَ. So O Allah, expand your provision, expand your risk toward me. Now this is just a short sentence, but see how much weight it carries or what effect it can have if we don't follow it correctly. So we are asking Allah for risk. Now risk can be in different forms. Risk can be food, risk can be water, risk can be clothing, risk can be sustenance, wealth, anything like that. Now what is the bala here? So what is the challenge that we face when we are asking Allah for risk and He begins to give us risk? What difficulty are we going to face? So Allah, the Imam then says, so after he says, "Awsi alayya fi rizqik," he then goes on to say, "Wala taftinni bil batari." So he's saying, "O Allah, and tempt me not with ingratitude." Now what does Imam mean by that? First, he's asking for risk, and now he's saying to Allah, don't tempt me with ingratitude. So what is ingratitude? Ingratitude is lack of appreciation. So when somebody gives you something nice, you appreciate what they've given to you. So when Allah gives us that risk, are we appreciating that risk that is given to us or not? Now if we are not, then it is ingratitude on our part. And that is very bad akhlaq. Ingratitude can also be in the form of wastefulness. If Allah gives us risk, for example, Allah gives us a lot of wealth, and we waste that wealth on rubbish things, then we are not appreciating the risk that Allah has given. So that is the downside. That is the problem that we are facing. By Allah giving us risk, we are then not making good use of it. Or we are not sharing that risk with other people. Or we are not thanking Allah enough for the risk that He is giving us, which is again rude. Now if I give something to one of you, the first thing you'll say, oh, thank you very much. And Allah is giving us, showering us risk day in, day out, night, every minute of our lives. Are we thanking Him enough or not? So that's a danger that we face from this good deed that we are asking Allah from. The second one, we say, وَعِزَّنِي, exalt me. Now just 2 words, exalt me. So what we are saying to Allah here is, Allah, honor me, raise my status in my community, raise my status in my workplace, raise my status in the people I interact with, raise my status in my family. So it's a good dua, but what is the danger behind it? What is the bala here? So the bala is in the next sentence. Imam says, وَتَبْتَلِيَنِّي بِالْكِبْرِ. So he's saying, and afflict me not with pride. Kibr is translated here as pride. So when our status is raised, when we become honorable within the community, etc., then there is that danger that we become proud and we begin to think too much of ourselves. Allah can give honor to people, but if that honor becomes the basis of pride and arrogance, then it is falling into bala. It creates a problem for us. And Imam Sajjad is teaching us that with izzah, there is a risk that pride and arrogance will creep in. And we have therefore to be very careful that Allah is accepting our dua, He's raising our status, but we are abusing that status. We are becoming arrogant and proud. Now, linguistically speaking, Kibriya means greatness and sovereignty. But greatness and sovereignty in that context is only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number 3, Imam says, wa abidni lak, make me worship you. Now we say this in Surah Al-Hamd every time. Iyyaka na'budu. So we say to Allah that make me worship you, I worship you. And Allah again is merciful. Allah gives us tawfiq to worship Him and do ibadah and do more and more ibadah and do ibadah in a better form. So we try and improve ourselves in how we do ibadah to Allah, ibadah of Allah. So again, a good dua, but what is the problem here? What is the danger that we face by asking Allah to enable us to do worship? So Imam says, وَلَا تُفْسِدُ ibadati bil ujub. So he says, O Allah, and corrupt not or ruin not my worship with self-admiration. Now self-admiration is, it's got a very spiritual danger here. Ujub and kibr, there's a different meaning between those. There are two different things. Kibr, as I said, is when we translate it as pride. So kibr is when I kind of look down on people. So I think that I'm at a higher level than people around me. Whereas ujub is when I admire myself too much. So when I do something good, I feel that I've done something, I've done great things. And if I pray on time, for example, I think, oh, I'm very good. I say shabash, shabash to myself. I pray namaz shab every day, and I feel very proud of myself, very good about it. I fast every Thursday. I say, I pray, and sometimes it slips out of my mind as well during a conversation. I say, yeah, I recite this every day. I recite namaz shab every day, and so on. And I give so much to charity, etc. So ujub is a spiritual disease. So when we get that sort of feeling inside us, then that becomes a bala. We have asked Allah for us to do mercy. He gives that opportunity to us, and we are misusing and abusing it. Number 4, Imam says, وَأَجْرِ لِلنَّاسِ عَلَى يَدِيَ الْخَيْرِ. And he's saying, oh Allah, the good that, so he says, so Allah, what good or charity will flow out of my hands upon the people? So in other words, we're asking Allah that give me the good or charity that flows out from my hands towards the people. Now it's a very good dua. We are asking Allah to enable us, to give us the opportunity to do good to other people, and let the goodness flow from us to the other people. And asking Allah to give us the opportunity to help others to develop themselves, if we have got the ways of doing it, of helping them, to encourage others if they have done something good, so that they can do more of it, to support others if they are in difficulty, and so on. And to serve them paya at Sunday morning niyaz after namaz. So all the good things that we do, we ask Allah that enable me to do that, to do goodness that flows to other people. Now again, very good dua. What is the danger here? What is the problem here? So the Imam says, وَلَا تَمْحَقْهُ بِالْمَنَّ, and do not nullify it or make it batil by making those people feel obliged. Again, something that we would probably fall into a trap, where we try and do good to other people. Then at some stage in time, either because we fell out with that person, we will remind him and say, oh, you don't remember that I gave you so much money at that time, or I did goodness to you at that time. Or we might be telling other people, we say, yeah, I've given him 100 pounds, so, because he was in trouble and difficulty. Now when that begins to go around, and it reaches the person who you helped out, and he gets the news that we are telling everybody else, or we are also reminding him again and again that I gave you money and all that, then imagine how that person feels. That person feels humiliated, and sometimes he would wish that I never asked for help from this person. So, in fact, if you also look at verse number 264 in Surah Al-Baqarah, it says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tubtilu sadaqatikum bil manni wal adha. So Allah is saying, O you who believe, do not make your sadaqah, your charity, batil or null and void by giving in such a way that you are making the recipient of the charity obliged, or you are hurting the feelings of that recipient. So if we fall into that category, then our sadaqah and charity will be completely null and void. Number 5, I'll finish very soon, don't worry. Wahabli ma'ali al-akhlaq. So we are saying to Allah, oh Allah, give me or bless me with the best of akhlaq. And that is the whole point of dua Mukkaram al-Ikhlaq. Mukkaram al-Ikhlaq means noble traits. So we are seeking noble traits from Allah. So we are saying to Allah, please give me the best of akhlaq. Again, beautiful dua. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His mercy, He gives us good akhlaq. He helps us with character building, and we begin to reform ourselves if we are not, if we are going in diverse ways. And so our akhlaq is improving. Now what is the danger here? What is the bala here? So Imam says, وَأَسِمْنِي مِنَ الْفَخْرِ. So Imam is saying, oh Allah, protect me from excessive pride or boasting. So, when your akhlaq begins to improve, and then when you think about and you say, I give a lot to charity, I am very humble, I am very respectful to other people, I don't lose my temper, and you begin to feel that inside yourself. And sometimes you will even boast to people and say, I never swear to anybody, I never lose my temper. So, you are beginning to boast about yourself. And that in itself is bala. Once you start to do that, then your akhlaq is going downhill once again. And finally, the last point. Imam says, Wala tarfa'ni fin nasi daraja. So he's saying, do not raise me a single degree in the eyes of people. Now I'll stop here, and then Imam continues. He says, "Illa hattattani inda nafsi mithlaha." So do not raise me a single degree in the eyes of people but that you lower me equally in my eyes. Now this is a very powerful statement, and it requires a lot of thought. So whatever, this might seem to be a contradiction, because we are saying to Allah, and on the one hand we are saying to Allah that increase me, raise me a single degree in the eyes of people. And then we are saying that lower me equally within myself. So the explanation here, the meaning of this here is that we are saying to Allah, oh Allah, whatever degree you raise me in the eyes of the people, then by that same degree make me humble in my own eyes. So, if you then link it with what I said earlier on, that we should not begin to feel proud of myself if our status is being raised, if Allah is raising us 1 degree in front of the eyes of the people, then we should not become proud within ourselves. We should stay away from kibr and all those things. So these are the extracts, important parts of the dua, and you can see these are simple statements. They might seem simple statements, but there is a deep spiritual meaning in each of those statements, and therefore just imagine what else there is in the whole of dua Mukkaram al-Ikhlaq and the whole of Sahifa Sajjadiyah. So let's pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He grants us the best of akhlaq, and that He protects us from the bala that arises from those good akhlaq that we might acquire, that will lead us to the worst of akhlaq. So Rabbana taqabbal innaka antas samiul alim برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Let's recite the Surah Fatiha for all our marhumin.